people grow and people evolve, and you may not be together forever.
Then the reverse question to you is like, why is it not the norm for everyone to have their own individual accounts, right? Be it a married couple or women or a guy, because I think everybody has to feel responsible for their own financial journey, right?
Welcome back to Wise and Shy. I'm your host Reggie, aka Your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Dawn, SG Budget Babe, your co-host. Today we're going to talk about the topic of money and couples and personality.
Oh my. and it's an age-old topic to be clear, right? Like, but the idea here is I think it's an age-old struggle between a lot of couples. Like, how do I manage my money together with my spouse? Especially if it's been a long-running relationship before you're settled down, right? So y'all kind of go through that whole like, oh, when you're kids, not really a lot of money, and then slowly the evolution actually kind of has some sort of legacy burden. I feel like, at least from my perspective.
It does.
Yeah, and we have went around asking a lot of people how do they manage money with their partner. So today this will be the same question, but with two very important guests that have interviewed many people. So we'll let them introduce yourself and then we can go into that discussion. Yeah.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Serena Wong. I'm born and bred Singaporean. I'm very proud to say that. And I spent my career in finance. So I worked at the Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund. I worked at GIC. I worked in investment banking, both in Europe, in the US, and in Singapore. And also worked in private wealth management with JP Morgan for a long time. And also not only large organizations, but also smaller organizations, like, for example, the last 5 years, I've been in a family office. So it's a different spectrum, but always around financial services and working with individuals and families.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Sharon Sim. I'm mostly Singaporean as well. Spent most of my career in financial institutions. I've been at Goldman Sachs, I've been at Lehman Brothers. So my career is very diversified in the sense I've done investment banking, I've been in wealth management. Currently, I'm actually in family offices. But also, I think something that's closer to my heart is investing, right? So I've actually done a lot of angel investing earlier days. Right now, I'm actually doing a bit more venture capital, early stage startup companies. So I think this whole conversation around money and communication, right, is so important throughout my career. I think finance, you can't divorce away from, it's a very people's business, right? I think a lot of times talking to clients or even talking to startup founders is almost like a partnership, like a relationship.
Yes.
I always joke that when I invest in startup companies, it's like getting into a marriage because it's a 10-year or more relationship.
Longer than most marriages on average.
Exactly right.
Oh.
So,
it's a sad reality, but it is a situation.
Yeah, the statistics are quite strong on that. But I think it's really that communication, which is important. I think you mentioned that. And the point is, how do you communicate?
Yes.
Especially when it's when times are great, everyone's happy.
Everything's rosy.
Yeah. When we have issues, how do you have those difficult conversations? I think that's something that I have experienced on many fronts. Relationship plus also work, right? Be it with clients or be it with investment companies.
Nice. I love how everybody come in must say they're from Singapore. This has become the standard.
To be Singaporean.
It's become the standard, right? We only feature locals, right? Like, and I think it's important. Born locals, right? Yeah. So, okay, but so maybe let's start. Like, if you are comfortable, maybe you could provide a little bit more context on your relationship with your spouse, what is it like at home? So maybe we move away from the career, right? We're trying to talk about like how is it relationship at home, right? So if you're comfortable, maybe you can share a little bit of that context first before we begin on like how do you manage with your partner?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll start off by saying I'm recently married, so it's a marriage later in life. I was also previously divorced, right? And maybe just bringing it back to the topic around communication and also the relationship with money. Again, I think it's a reflection of life's journey. In the 20s, 30s, when, they tell you the world is your oyster, go out and like do anything, experiment, like whether, work or people that you go out with, you date, and all of that. It is important because for me, and I think I speak for most people, it's very hard for me to determine, or it was very hard for me to determine what exactly I wanted. But it was easier for me to say what I didn't want. So how that evolves in relationship with money is that then I realize what kind of relationship works for me. So in a sense that I need a lot of independence, a lot of freedom. I need to come to the conclusion myself that this is the person I want to be with, or this is, what I want to do with money, what's my purpose with money. So I need to go on that long meandering journey before I arrive and say, actually, the person that I need to be with is somebody who's very open-minded, somebody who gives me a lot of space, a lot of ground, and somebody actually who's more financially equal rather than unequal. I think, I dated a lot of guys who were very wealthy, who had a lot of financial resources and all that. But given my background, coming from, from an average Singaporean family, even those of maybe intellectually, academically, ability-wise, we were good sparring partners, but there was a financial disparity. And I'm not sure, I don't know, whether that kind of affected the relationship for the long term, but certainly I think it made me struggle internally more with it. And now, sort of in my 40s, having sort of, been sort of recently married, that it's just a lot more ease, right? There's no tension, there's no bracing, there's no skirting around or not wanting to address how much money we have or don't have. What is it that we're putting money with? What is it that we're spending on? What is it that we're buying, not buying? Who we're going out with? All of these, become a radical acceptance of who we are as a person and who the other party is as a person, and growing along that journey. So that's kind of a little bit of background.
Thank you. And to be clear, right? We'll be sharing a lot of anecdotes, right? Don't feel pressure to share frameworks, okay? Please, yeah. And no, it does not need to be data backed. We're trying to get from the ground up, like how have you done it? How have some other people done it? And kind of learn from all the experiences and stories, right? Okay, so thanks for sharing. And yourself?
I think back to Serena's point about being compatible, right, with your partner, your boyfriend, and your husband. I think it's really having that value of money, how you view money. So I think for me and my husband, we've been married for way too long, but I think we grow into each other, I would say, right? Because I think when we were dating, everything was rosy, right? We were going out, spending money. It's very little serious talk about, okay, how are we going to plan for our finances? But as we settled down, got married, then the kids arrived. I have 2 kids. So it's a lot more serious conversations around, okay, family, money, what are we doing? What are we investing? So I think what is good is that we are very different. I think the acknowledgement that my approach to money is different from his. He's the kind of guy who is very meticulous about budgeting, right? He's the kind of guy that will have spreadsheets that...
He's budget bro.
Yes. He's your...
Spreadsheet bro.
So he's meticulous to the point where it's very ridiculous. Like you can tell him, okay,
Oh my
2
God, I hate
years
those
ago,
people. I'm sorry.
holiday in New Zealand. Okay, where did we go? What did we spend? He was like, oh, let me tell you exactly how much you spent, where we had lunch, right? And we spent like how many, how much during the entire holiday, right? So he is that style, right? And I accepted that. And for me, initially, it was a challenge because I'm not like that at all. I don't keep spreadsheets of my spending. If I like to spend, I would spend. I do like a very rough kind of tabulation at the end of the month. Okay, credit card bill is how much. My salary is how much. Okay, I know I'm okay.
So aga positive, never net zero or negative can already, right?
Yeah, I don't need to know all the details. It's just not important to me, right? So I have to adjust my thinking, and I could see the benefits of what he's doing, right? After a few more years living with him, it's important to track expenses. We all know that, right? And cost of living, how we investing. So he can pull out, okay, we're spending too much this month eating out compared to last year, we only spend X amount. Okay, there's like, now that you put it this way, okay, yeah. So I think it helps to have a different way of approaching money. And I think I appreciate him for that. Initially, it was a bit of a struggle. I was like, I don't want to pass you my receipt. Why should I? It's like... it's just so much
You
work.
gave it to him.
Yeah. After a while, he stopped asking. Then he has it from the credit card bill,
he just
so it's
observed.
fine. Yeah. So it's like small stuff I don't record lah, because like you go to the wet market, you buy something. Why should I tell you how much I spend?
Wait,
but
you mean he records those things also?
he will recover himself. Yeah.
Oh my
Provision
goodness.
shop, how much he goes, how much he
Even
spends.
up to now.
Into now. It's a habit. For him, it's
Wow.
very ingrained. So I've learned to accept and then appreciate it, because it helps with planning, right? We kind of know the family household expenses over the years. But it takes time, right? It takes a lot of communication, but I wouldn't say like, deep discussion. It's just observing, accepting him, and seeing the benefit of it, being open-minded. Right. So I think that's where we got a very comfortable kind of relationship at home, where he take care of a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff, payments of small bills, and getting all this budgeting done. And I think for me, he has also accepted the fact that I'm never going to be like him, and also the fact that I'm more interested about making money. Right? How can we invest better? What do we do with our fixed income? How do we get more from our fixed deposit? So I'm more to that direction, and he will take care of the bottom line.
So time before this acceptance, how was it like?
I find it very annoying, like, and it's just literally for me, I don't see the point when I was younger, because there's so many things more exciting than looking at spreadsheets and keeping track of what you spend, right? I mean, as in to that minute detail.
I know the pomfret $3 for $5. That's why it's like why care?
Even till today, can tell me, milk prices have gone up by how many percent from last year. I was like, okay, very good.
He should send me his spreadsheet. I'll make it into an Instagram post.
You should look at it.
Yeah, like the pricing
it's
data
really quite
sets,
fancy,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there are charts and all that stuff,
Oh
right? So he
my.
does track the trends. So I think it's acceptance, but also as you said earlier on, is really not being so happy with the way he does things. And I think that's in any relationship, right? When you're dating, everything seems very rosy, but when you live together, then you realize the quirks of everyone. So it took me a couple of years to really get him, right, in that sense. And I get him in a sense, I told myself, it's his thing. So let him do his thing. Right?
So there wasn't like a family town hall meeting. And then like,
No,
hey, this has to stop. Right. No, so is this like over time you observe?
Over
and
time
then
I
you're like,
observe.
yeah, never mind.
And
lah."
I think over time you also learn not to kacau me, not to ask me for all these receipts and bug me about all the the smaller details. But I think over time we get to accept each other, right? And any relationship.
I think over time we know which battles to pick.
That's true. I guess like Serena, so you're already clear because you knew what you wanted at this point in time. But for you, Sharon, because you said you've been with him forever.
For a long time.
I think
So
that's
he's
the
from
interesting
school,
one
right?
because you actually went in with like, I want this. You
Yes,
cannot
I
hit
know
this, you're
what I
out,
want.
right? It's
I-
quite
yeah.
clear, right? Whereas
I
you
knew
had
my
an
parameters.
evolution, where I think a lot of like
Did
Singapore.
you know that he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so different from you before you said yes to marrying him?
Honestly, no, right? Because you never know a person until you live with a person
Over time.
Over time, and and we change also over time. But I do know, of course, his character is a little bit more careful. He likes to track things, which I like, because when we were dating, and he would plan everything, right? Holidays, where to go, right down to the exact spot will be for lunch.
He just didn't bring out the spreadsheet and tell you, hey,
Oh,
babe,
we do
last
have-
year our dates were cheaper by 20%.
Actually, we do have spreadsheets for our travels, right? Till today, we keep itineraries from all our trips. So I think it's like, I like that because I don't worry, right? Because I just, okay, let's go on holiday. It's like, oh, I'll plan it.
And he's
And
very
he's really
happy
good
about it,
plan.
right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're just
he
very happy.
enjoys
Okay,
it.
you planned it. Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. I show up, I enjoy, and he's very good, I would say. That's his strength. Right? He knows how to arrange, and timing wise, logistics. So, I think play to his strength. But after a while, you get to, when you live with somebody and it becomes, a bit more overwhelming than when you're dating, that's where the adjustment period happens, right? I think we had to go through that.
It's
So how
really-
did you
it's- yeah,
get
it-
past that shock or adjustment? How do you get adjusted then?
I think time, right? I think it's,
So there's no active steps to it. It's just like you just sit down there. Eventually, it's like,
I think a lot of couples are like this, right? As we grow into the marriage, of course, we have discussion around the bigger issues, kids, parenting style. I think those are very critical and issues that we talk about a bit more. I think it's also less qualitative. It's very qualitative in how we want to approach things. But I think on things like finance and money, I think it's where I think we kind of accepted the styles are different. I think also with parenting, right, it's a whole different ball game.
That's a beast. Yeah,
Yes.
there's so much to talk about there.
I know.
Yeah.
And I think we all know in Singapore, there's a pressure cooker. All the parents are very kiasu, including myself. I never thought I would be one of them, but I was and I am.
I know so many people that are like, I'll never be like that,
No,
right? And
they
then
all
once
do
the
not
game
like that.
starts,
Yes.
it's like, oh my God, why are we not sending boy, girl, girl here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then all the tuition and, how to help the kids. It's a lot of, I guess, couple, I won't say therapy, but we go through it the hard way, I would say. Like we clash on different issues. For example, I think it was very hard on the kids when they were younger, in terms of tuition, homework. So we always have fights about smaller things like this, but also they are actually very big issues right down the road. So as Serena said, just pick your battles. I think let the small stuff slide. I think the issues that are very core to the relationship, to the family, that's where it would take a long time to resolve. So back to the point about, it's not like having a town hall. The town hall doesn't solve any problem. You just flag all the issues out, and emotional, and people get very highly charged. But it takes time to accept and resolve, I think, a lot of the bigger problems.
I know Reggie is very into practical steps, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that
No, and I would say actually just sitting there and letting it slide is also a practical step.
Very practical.
It's a longevity
Very practical.
wisdom, right? Yeah, but please add more.
Yeah, so the thing that immediately jumped to mind and something that we discussed fairly early, my husband told me, is that please don't bring something up before we go to bed. Like the lying in bed, right? Please, bed is
Don't
for
do that.
sleeping,
I
not
second
talking.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So please, if you really need to talk about it, you've done it before outside the bedroom, or if you can wait until tomorrow, fine. The bedroom is for sleeping, not for talking. Yeah. So I think that's something that I really appreciated, because when you're dating, then you're like, oh la la la, my hopes and dreams are such, but actually he's not interested at that point in time. So
He's fighting the Z monster. He just wants to sleep.
And this is where their guard is down. You think that, that's what we, maybe the ladies, we say, this is where we can have the deepest conversations. But no, guard is down means like need to rest.
Yes. Actually, I really hate that, Like when the guard is down, right? And so I'm like just relaxing. Then you give me like this boomerang and it's like, what? It's like, I'm not interested in that now. And it eats into me and it affects my sleep.
Correct.
Because then the basis is, I know it matters to you, right? But I'm not in the right frame of mind to handle this now. So I don't want to think about it and settle it. But because it matters to you, it will linger in my head. So it affects my sleep, affects my next day. Then eventually it's like,
It spirals down.
So it's bad, right? So please, whoever, guy, girls, whatever, right? I think if you choose to live with somebody and spend your life together, then you must understand some of these parameters. Like, what is the best time to actually talk about it?
But that's actually a very practical step, because if you go and Google search, they will always say like, you must resolve everything before you go to bed.
Yes,
right?
true.
So then sometimes go to bed means in the bedroom.
Don't go to bed angry, they'll say.
But having that communication and say, hey, look, the bedroom is sacred. It's for my rest. Don't do it here. Do it before that happens. I think that's useful.
Yeah.
And it then allows the couple to really communicate better about all these issues, not just about money, but everything that's complex.
Fair.
And I think also, as with more long-term partnerships, one of the myths about relationship and it affects money is that you need to find somebody exactly like you.
Yeah.
But actually, in relationships, the long-term partnerships that work very well
Are
actually have
opposites.
very
Yes.
complementary skill sets, very often quite different and opposite, right? Like, I'm quite introverted, my husband's extroverted. He likes to talk. And I'm very happy to go to parties or have dinner, dates with other people, because he can talk, and I just
you just chill on the side.
eat, Sharon knows, we just talk. So we're very complementary that way. And I think with regards to money, I'm the one who's also longer term. So, whether when it comes to home or property or just thinking about longer term investing, I think that's me. Where one thing that we don't agree on, and he then goes on and does it himself, is this whole like options trading or derivatives trading or just trading, buy, sell, because in his analysis or in his framework, there are certain, his decision-making process is quite different from mine. I feel that I have other things to worry about, so I invest for the longer term, whether it's in private investments or investing in founders or just having a portfolio that don't need to tweak asset allocation, strategic asset allocation. For him, there's no strategic asset allocation. It's all tactical, depending on really, I think, where he feels that there's the most opportunity, so he's very opportunistic. So because of that, that's when we actually started a portfolio together. I said, please carve out. I don't want to know, don't want to see, I don't agree with it, so please carve out, do that yourself, right? So I think then what we had together became kind of core. Then, he did his own derivative, set up own account, do own trading. And then I also definitely have my own separate pot where, that's kind of, I let him know, who I've met, what I'm doing, but I don't need to get approval. I sometimes even don't really consult, let him know after the fact, because that's my own independent decision-making process. And maybe what is sort of more implied rather than explicit in the discussion is that it's not 100% communication. For me, we don't have 100% clarity and communication around money and finances, but we have 100% communication and commitment that we're in this together for the family, for the long term. But money still an evolution, not a revolution process.
I get it, but how do you square that? Right, like the commitment is in making this relationship work, right? But money as a secondary to this relationship also kind of need to work. But then it's a there's no clarity.
I think where the common ground and the clarity is that we're two individuals, and this is where we're aligned and similar. Is that I think if we lost everything, we wouldn't die. We will, still go out there, work, make the next paycheck. We're not the doomsday whereby, oh my God, we lost everything, the world has come to an end. So I think that survival instinct or that how we grew up instinct is that we will survive. Even whether we're 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, if we don't have money anymore, we will make it back. Or we will find ways.
So with that as the baseline, then in your investments don't need to be that clear in that sense.
I think if it's clear, it's better. But
sometimes it's a struggle. Pick your battles.
Pick your battles. It's struggle in the sense that I think where we don't have, I know couples have money goals. We want to, be this, or we want to have this home by a certain time. We want to then have a second home somewhere else. So actually, counterintuitively, we don't have that kind of objectives. So we didn't say that, we need X amount or we need however much to be secure.
Why?
I think coming back, I think it's an issue of how we grew up. Because the sense of the family or the home was not tied to money or how much money we had. So that became a more recent kind of growing up concept. So I think then if that's the case, then we're not saying I love money. He loves money. And he's a headhunter, so he works in the financial industry, trading people, right?
Trading people.
Am I tradable?
So he loves being surrounded by it, but I think where we get our high is, hey, how did you do it? Or being surrounded by people who are energized by it, who are ambitious, aspirational. Usually, fairly often, the people with the most money, when they actually say it, are some of the least interesting people, right? I think we're interested in the people, the journey, not so much the how much per se.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your chief financial coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show.
Okay, I'm going to dial back this discussion a little bit. So what we're hearing is that you guys actually have spouses who are quite different from you in terms of money personality. That expands to many different decisions. But let's go back to the very basics first, right? When it comes to savings, so who's the saver in your household?
I think very clearly my husband is the saver.
I'm sure. I want your husband's framework.
Yes.
The Excel sheet.
It should be templated,
Yeah,
right?
it should be templated. Yes.
Correct. No, he's definitely more of a saver, and I would say I'm more a spender, but also I've changed over the years, right?
Influenced by him.
Influenced, but also I think as we get older, the whole perception of, saving and investing becomes more real. So I would say I'm quite balanced right now. I'm a bit of both, right? I obviously have to save, and I like to save because I like to use the money to invest. So I think it's quite complementary that way. And I think he also changed, right, over the years.
Yeah, you definitely would have influenced him to spend a bit more, right, on things that matter.
Holidays, definitely with kids, so the experiences that we are willing to spend on. But also I think his trading style has changed. So I think he's also able to take on more risk on his own. So I think we all have different styles when we started, but I think we all evolved over this whole journey, right?
So in our household, he's the saver as well.
Oh, he's
but
the saver,
again,
you're the
coming back
spender.
to, I think it's because of how his work, right? As a headhunter, you're boom bust. It's feast or famine, Like you do something well, you can eat off that for a while. You don't, it's famine, like until the next, trade comes along, right? Or the next work comes along. So I think because of that, his discipline around saving is much higher. I grew up and in the work environment. I'm used to regular paycheck. If there's a regular paycheck, means I can spend, right? Because next month there's always a paycheck. So I think I'm more of a spender in that sense. But then the evolution for me in terms of spending is now the non-negotiables and the negotiables have, kind of more clearly fallen into place. So the non-negotiables would be obviously all the necessity, whatever keeps us alive. And then parents, sort of that how we take care of our parents, whether it's healthcare or otherwise. Or, things that are more self-care, whether it's coaching, whether it's education for ourselves, that kind of spending, non-negotiables, right? And then what's negotiable actually has become less and less important. So the eating out, the drinking, the buying clothes. Actually, this year, funny because I was just actually, now I carry a tote bag. It's all the free tote bags. Because
I have 101 free tote bags. Every event has free tote bags.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's so much better because I used to carry the heavy bags and it was giving me backache and neck ache. So
Yeah, I never understood why the branded bags are always so heavy.
so heavy, yeah. So again, those the negotiables have become less and less important.
I love this conversation, we always hear things about how the women in the relationship are the savers and the men are the spenders. But this conversation, and you guys are proof that it actually is not a gender thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
also the work, the mindset you grew up with,
Yeah.
and it's more than just the gender. And what's beautiful about this conversation is that in every relationship, I think most people try to find someone who's similar. So the saver wants to find a fellow saver.
Really?
But most of the time. But I think this is actually the perfect combo. You do need one saver and one spender so they can both influence each other, right? The saver saves too much, the spender spends too much. Both start
It
to
becomes
influence
more
each
long-term
other.
and sustainable.
More long-term.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
Then
Okay,
you
so-
balance each other out a bit more. I think
Correct,
that's very
correct.
important, right? Because you can have two very similar, money mindset, and then it creates more problems down the road.
Yeah.
So I think it's always good to cross-pollinate.
Cross-pollinate.
Yes.
Like genes, right? And all that. Okay, so when it comes to savings then, do you guys have a separate account or a joint?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so do you have separate plus joint or just separate?
We have
Separate for us. Yeah.
separate.
Also, your savings are separated.
Separated, yeah. We do have a joint account, and I think I mentioned it's really to pay for household expenses.
And you said that you like the 50-50 equal.
Equal
and to you, it's a
payment.
mantra. You hold to it. And
Yes.
it's very interesting. And if you have not heard that, check out the first part or the other episode that we did. Okay.
Yeah, but quick summary for those of you who are feeling lost. So Sharon's approach is she and her husband each has her own savings account, and then they also have a joint account which is for family, and they contribute 50-50 50-50 to each. So that's one method that you guys can explore with your other half if you're looking for some solution. But there are other methods too. Serena, what's your method?
I think our method is no method, but maybe again, this is not perfect, but there is no kind of spreadsheet accountability, but there is the mental, emotional accountability, right? So it's like, and I think the more Asian way of subscribing to is roughly equal.
Agak-agak.
Agak-agak, yeah, roughly equal. So if I take care of the car, then you take care of the house. If I take care of this, because I have a stepdaughter as well, so take care of the child. Then I take care of some, for example, the big items like the holidays. So agak-agak, and if we subscribe to that in life, it roughly works out. It's when you deviate and the gap becomes too wide, then it creates tension and conflict.
Then that's where you communicate to bring it back.
That's when you need to then bring it back.
Yeah. I like this because personally, like my approach is more like Serena. I mean, we both started as two individuals going through that marriage, so we have our own accounts. But we're also exploring the merits of having a joint fixed account for the family, so that now what we do is not very ideal. I cover everything.
Budget bit say what she do is not ideal.
Yeah, but it works for the relationship. So what I do is like I pay everything, right? Then every year in December I'll tabulate, and then I will send him all money pay. I'm telling him this is too much mental stress already because I don't want to have to tabulate every year while still doing everything else. So I'm starting to explore that. But I think what's great is you see there are many different methods. And it's really just all about finding what works for you. And you can shift that as the time change, as your personalities change, as work becomes more hectic. That's when looking at different methods. My method, which is Serena's method, worked in the beginning years. But then after the kids came, I was like, too much mental stress already. So now we need to start moving to something that's a bit less taxing.
Fair. So maybe talking about change, right? Over time, your ideas change, the relationship evolves, right? So how has some major milestones in your relationship with your partner and the way you handle money, how has that kind of evolved over time? Other than accepting that he's like that one, very kiam one, and I had to count everything, right? But it works in a certain way, right? So are there other major milestones that would be interesting to highlight? Or maybe even some of the people you've interviewed in your book?
Yeah, maybe so more personal anecdote first. Major milestones is when you're dating. Then I think for me, my mentality and mindset there must be very equal. I go out and date, I pay because I can. Yes. Not even AH, I pay.
Oh.
I pay because I can.
Okay.
Like I'm a strong woman. Independent. And then you realize, hey, is this guy receptive to it? Can he live with it? Is he the sort that, because we've also heard stories, whereby actually this is a recent story from somebody I know, is dating a guy, paid for the date, and then the guy said, oh, maybe, and she was, I think as they were getting the check, she quickly just gave the credit card, and he said, oh, maybe you could have done that like after the waiter went away. Then you put the card out, then he come back, then it's like, then she's like, but then they'll know whose name is on the card anyway, what? Yeah. But apparently the guy cannot tahan lah, right?
The guy cared
so again, through some of these exercises, you understand that what is this guy's values and parameters as well. So for me, he was very happy, great, like
today someone tell me I'm very happy.
This girl asked me for a date, so I realized kind of what kind of person he was, and initially I was very headstrong, like I have to pay my own, I pay for you, and then I think as the relationship evolved, actually now I'm like, it's okay, it doesn't matter to me anymore, like whether I'm the one paying or he's the one paying, because I think, we are now, committed. Together, in it together. And maybe there's a bit of that, mental calculation. I think it's impossible to run away from that sort of mental accounting. I think it would be disingenuous to say that, I give wholeheartedly, doesn't matter. Yeah. I think, we all have that.
Yeah, I think back to your point, I think it's really like, in every relationship, especially marriage, there's always a balance of power. Right, I think we all start off maybe similar because we are like, new to the workforce, all creating our own careers. But I think as time passes, right, this where as what you said, the imbalance kind of shows up. And I think those are milestones that everyone goes through, right? Maybe, for us, it's like if, let's say, a female get promoted and she earns a lot more than her husband, how does that change the dynamics at home? Because it's always very tricky to balance that, right? Because you don't want your partner to feel less or contributes less or is less successful. So this is a kind of a balance that I think for me, everyone goes through this. And I think it's by experience. There's no like method, there's no like, therapy or anything, but it's just to be understanding. Like back to your example about taking out your credit card to pay. Maybe the thought process could be, more balanced. It's like, okay, offering if the guy wants to pay, right? Or you want to split the bill. So you don't make the other party feel like, I'm taking...
It's a power move.
It's a power move.
It is a power move. I'm
Correct.
making a statement here, right?
I can afford
I don't
it.
need you to treat one, okay? I can, right? Yeah, it's a power move. Yeah.
So I think when you're in a relationship, especially in marriage, you got to be even more sensitive because this is a guy, this is your husband. And, you know that even for guys, right, you have emotional up and down, you have midlife crisis.
Thanks for recognizing that.
Yeah, so it's very
Sometimes I feel
real.
like people don't think guys got struggles on, but yes.
No, I'm sure you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
through ups
yeah.
and downs, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think therefore to be respectful of your partner, that goes a long way. And I think, and vice versa, when I go through tough times, I think the other party also has to understand and balance that, right? So it's not about a power play, it's really a balance of power, which is, I guess, at every milestone in a marriage, like, when you get married and after when you're your first child, your second child, we feel vulnerable as new moms, right? We feel unattractive, there's a lot of stress, work and everything. So the balance of power is also shifting. And I think that the whole understanding of what your partner is going through is very important. So therefore, I think money also is kind of like complicated. It's tied into all of that, right?
A riff of that. And this is from, I think, the stories we heard from the women in the book. So it's not just milestones, meaning this kind of relationship milestones. It's also even when you're in a relationship, what could happen. So milestones could be like you lose a job. Milestones could be like divorce, right? Or health issue. So we've heard all of these also in the book. So for example, and one of the ladies we spoke with was doing very well in a role, but was then found herself in a position whereby she wasn't. And it's very funny because she said then in a relationship, when she was at home taking care of the kids and all that, she was very reluctant to ask or to speak to her husband about having an allowance or, given that you don't have that paycheck, for that period that you don't have job or work, she didn't want to talk to the husband about asking for money to cover other things. So I guess the takeaway from that is, again, coming back to how comfortable are we in that relationship? Sometimes we just, they say that discomfort is the boundaries of change, right? Or growth. So we also need to test that muscle. Like because we're so uncomfortable, maybe we need to recognize that it's an area whereby we need to address and growth. And let's try to have that conversation about maybe during this period, could you cover this, or the household needs other means from you as well. I think that's very one. I think divorce is a very real issue as well, and the conversations we've had or heard from women is that they don't know even with joint bank account, you've never logged in, you don't know the password. You have an investment account together. You're not consulted or you don't discuss the buy sell, right? So you don't know exactly what you have. So I think these are very practical, again, points about, yes, we may have a joint bank account. Yes, we may have an investment account, but do you really know what's happening in it?
Yeah, that's very insightful. I think also for a lot of women, some of the times where they don't talk about money, this is where when these negative milestones happen, it gets even tougher for them, because when they couldn't even talk about money in the good times, it gets even harder to address it in the bad times. That's why we all need to have more open conversations about money, not just with each other, but our spouses, hearing from all these anecdotal stories of how other people have done it, that can actually help.
But what about like your life goals, you know, like coming together? Because I think a lot of times when we talk about like planning together or like, you know, kind of charting your finances together, it revolves around life goals, right? It revolves around what you want. Like what you said, right? But between you and your husband, there's no like, oh, well, buy this house, that thing, blah, 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 right? So how are people doing it? And then like, how do you kind of like structure this thing? Because spending is just a very small part of this, right? But the whole big direction, how do you all come to consensus and all that?
Yeah, so I think the life goal is important, right? And I think life goals can change, right, over the years. I think some of the stories we have heard is that life goals differ, right? The husband is thinking about retirement, enjoying, you know, his retirement years, traveling, whereas the wife is thinking differently, right? It's like, I may not want to retire. And secondly, I really want to help my kids maybe with their careers or buy them a property. So therefore, these are very real divergence of life goals. And I think everyone has different life goals, right? I think for myself and my husband, it was very straightforward. There was no big number, no big, you know, prize at the end of it. It's really to live a good life, make sure our kids have a good head start in life. I think we're all very privileged in Singapore already. But I think the fact that we want to make sure they have a good childhood, if they want to go overseas or they can't make it in Singapore, we can send them somewhere to study, right? So I think that's a basic understanding. I don't think we have super grand goals about
but
where we want to be.
Even that you have to define, right?
Yes.
Like what is the good life? What constitute? What are the things to acquire to constitute a good life, and then attach a monetary value, right? So even then, it's quite a tedious.
It's I think tedious in a way. Yes, we have to kind of say, okay, which house you want to live in. I think in Singapore, we are quite fortunate. All of us, 70-80% of us have own property, right? So then it becomes of what kind of lifestyle you want to lead. I guess for the children as well, what kind of university degree they want to have, where can they go to study. So I think those are the more bigger concrete goals. But I don't think we specify like, I need to
I want
own
to challenge you on that, Reggie,
a
because
luxury car or whatever.
Because yeah, maybe it's financial literature written by other people that says that, you know, like big life goals, or, you know, in relationship you're striving towards that big home or that second home, or, you know, providing for healthcare, education.
Yeah.
I think those are very logical ways, and yes, there are many ways to derive and come back to that. But I think in a relationship, I think the definition of it actually has very little to do with money. So I think I would push back to say that, you know, the coming together of people, because we here we're discussing two topics, right? Relationships and money.
Yes.
So it's actually very separate.
Yeah.
There are a lot of it overlaps for sure, but I think the core thing of relationships actually has very little to do with money. And when what we can do is use money to enhance the quality of it, and, you know, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, kids, homes, I think these are very concrete. And, you know, to your point about how do we attach a monetary value to it, I think then we need to come back to a lot of objective setting, right? So meaning that what is our personal objective is not the financial objective. What is our personal objective? Like, do we value, for example, you know, having an early retirement? Do we value taking care of our parents and everyone's, you know, living longer? Do we have enough of that, you know, to stretch it? So coming back to, again, the book is because there are a couple of things. Savings is great, but it's not necessary. In Singapore, everybody looks at your CPF account and think that, you know, wow, it's such a big number. You know, a bank account cannot compare to my CPF account. Everyday check, right? See, what is that compounding number there?
Wait,
So-
do people check every day?
Regularly, lah. You know, when regularly.
If you check every day, you put a comment section, I'll talk to you. Okay?
Yeah, so there is a bit of that false sense of financial security that with that, you can have the quality of life that you want to have. We are saying that no, in addition, in addition to having good relationships, how to have money and money work for you is actually, you need to come together and invest, right? Whether it's a couple or we are saying, hey, woman, sisters, you know, please, you take care of yourself as well and make that money work harder for you. we can have a deeper conversation around how to do that, because there can be very simple ways of doing it. You put ETF and then like sleep and then let it compound for you, or there could be more involved ways whereby you're more engaged in that process.
Okay, fair. So in that sense, but you have already kind of fleshed out like, okay, your investments are separated and it's perfectly okay. And most people will do that. And most people you recommend to do that, like kind of separate it.
As a woman, I would say you can have a common pool, but you better have your own. You never know.
Where's that coming from?
Where's that coming from? I think it's coming from a place that relationships you start with the best of intentions, always, but people grow and people evolve, and you may not be together forever.
Then the reverse question to you is like, why is it not the norm for everyone to have their own individual accounts, right? Be it a married couple or women or a guy, because I think everybody has to feel responsible for their own financial journey, right? Whatever you want to do with it. So I think it's just practical sense. It's not a guy or a girl thing. It's not a marriage thing either. I just encourage everyone to please, manage your own finances and be very clear about what you have in your bank account, how you want to invest, and be responsible for it. It's just owning up to it, right? And don't give that power to anyone, your parents, your spouse, whoever you think is your financial advisor as well. So I think it's very generic advice. And I think for me, it's something very fundamental, right?
Yeah.
Fundamental, and also in this day and age whereby scams are so common, please take that power back to yourself and be able to deal with it and handle it yourself as well.
So to give you that context, right? My kids are teenagers, but I started to have get them open a bank account when they're quite young, one of those saver accounts, right? And the reason is it's not a lot of money, but I just want them to track it. I want to show them the statement every month. I want them to see, okay, how much interest they're getting. Sometimes it's like 50 cents, like $1. It's like, at least you can go buy a drink in your canteen, right? So I just want them to understand that they need to know, and they need to track, and they need to feel the value of money. So they'll say oh, how come the bank pays me so little interest, right? Why am I just getting 50 cents? There's do you understand interest rates? Do you understand how the bank, don't give you a lot, because they also have business. They have to make money somewhere, right? So I think having that sense of control as young as you can with your kids, and that will lead them to, when they're older, when they get married, to feel like it's a norm. Why should I have a joint account just for the sake of a joint account? I need to know what I have. Of course, then the discussion with your spouse could be different, like how you want to manage a joint account.
Yeah. But I will push to say that we all understand in finance, your numbers are bigger, you got more power, right? So if everybody manages individually, separately on their own, then on some level you're weaker in your optionality and what you can do around it.
Actually, I
right? So there's different methodology and risk profile. That will be a much bigger discussion.
I think my point is a starting point. Because the starting point for women is that we've always been, women before has always been in a collective pool. So then it's seldom that they have their own pool. So I think the starting point, we're saying that now start thinking for yourself and start your own pool, right? Because we know our mothers, grandmothers and all that, all the money that they earn goes back to the family. It's to feed the family, it's to do everything for the family, nothing for themselves or ourselves. So again, it's a starting point issue.
To be fair, if you drag it even earlier, everybody's money in the family in the same surname was pulled together. Right? That's why your surname is in front, and then the chief of the family will then distribute down, right?
So actually, but back in the old days, right, for females, our name is not even there, not even in the family book. So I think that's also another thing, as Serena said, right? It's like for us to not be so comfortable being part of a collective, part of a family, but to really, control it ourselves, to own it.
Interesting.
And to start young, why not?
Fair.
Because SG budget also, investing cannot be done in theory in your head. It needs to be practiced. It needs to be executed. So if you've never had the experience of rolling a fixed deposit, if you've never had the experience of opening an online investment account, placing a trade, selling, these then become really daunting tasks. But once you do it, money transfer here and there, you can just press a button, it's okay. It's okay. So it's just getting over these initial barriers.
Exactly. And I think also like the more people practice it, the more they can focus on things that need more of their actual brain and analysis instead of worrying over, which brokerage should I use? Which platform? How to buy and sell? Actually, the bigger decisions are which companies are the better options? How are their growth like? Reading the financial statements, analyzing them. But if they're also caught up with the front, especially if they've always left that to their other half to do, then when they are left in a situation where they now have to do it on their own, if they cannot get past the initial barrier, right? It's just so hard to progress forward.
Fair,
So I completely agree. Why should it be that, it needs to be put together, like really just taking out our own pool? That should be the way, at least for women. And the men, for everyone, and even for the kids.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I challenge that notion. I think you must have your own pool as part, like a protection, is a safety net type of situation, and you want your own creativity when you're investing on your own, right? So there's that level of power, but on some level you're sacrificing the collective bigger pool, that strength of numbers.
Which
right?
is where I guess Sharon's method of having a joint can also help.
Yeah. So
you
I
can
think
have that together, but your own portion too.
Yes. So I think that baseline is not to say one side is better than the other, but to understand the parameters of if you do it this way, this is what you get, right? You do it on your own, you got all the control, you can do all your creative stuff, but you sacrifice the bigger pool. Right? And you pull together, then very mahuan because everybody need to vote and agree and all that things, right? It's very difficult, but you got a bigger pool, you can play more things, right? So this is about first principles, and then you decide on your own which one works better.
Yeah.
Or maybe some sort of a
I think people in a way find their own solution. So typically in a household, the biggest thing is the property, right? So people then like to pool together for that.
Yes.
And then the sort of more liquid investments tend to be
a bit more flexible.
a bit more flexible, smaller. Then you can manage it on your own.
Yeah. So fundamentally, I just want to close that there's no high ground, okay?
Yes.
Different things work for different, you learn a little bit more about these
Every
things.
couple has different triggers and strengths.
Exactly.
So that's where learning all these anecdotal differences and methods can actually help yourself as a couple to decide what best works for you.
It's true. It's like how I would love someone that is very meticulous in planning a trip, and I just go sign on it, right? So, whoa, enjoy! Don't need to think so much. Okay, thank you for your time. If you guys want to get their book, we'll put the link in the bottom. And if they would love to connect with you, where should they connect with?
We're actually on social media. So we have a IG account, Why Women Don't Talk Money, and also on LinkedIn as well. Same title, Why Women Don't Talk Money.
Nice.
And Sharon Sim,
always
my
on
dear
LinkedIn.
friend, Serena Wong, we're on LinkedIn, so you can find us there as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
You guys know where to find them. Leave your comments below. And if you'd like to find out more, you can reach out to them separately.
Awesome.
Thank you
And
for
with that,
tuning in.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.